Alrighty, today we are going to be discussing overpopulation. Now, overpopulation can have different meanings to different people when they hear that word, but the one true meaning for overpopulation is when there are more species or people in a ecosystem or environment that environment can sustain, resulting in overpopulation. Now, in order to fully understand overpopulation, we have to first understand how it began. Now, of course, human overpopulation can go as far back as BC, but in this case, we are going to use America, for instance, for overpopulation. And looking at that, we're going to have to look at the Industrial Revolution, which the Industrial Revolution, as you see, took place from the 18th and 19th centuries. Now, this was a time period where people moved from rural societies and they urbanized certain areas. And the reason they did this was primarily for the factor that there were jobs and economic prosperity there. So they left their farmlands to go into these factories, and this resulted in cities being colonized and mass amounts of people migrating to them. Now, as you can see here, approximately 7 billion people live on our planet, and each day 200,000 people are coming into this world. So roughly that's about 140 people per minute. Now, that's an insane amount of number alone. And over the entire course of the year, 80 million human beings are coming into the world a year. That's a lot of people. And the problem with this is less developed places are going to have a tendency to keep on bringing people in here, as opposed to more well-developed places like Japan, for instance, and Western Europe. So as long as places are not well developed, like certain parts of the world are, you're going to constantly see overpopulation, and that becomes a huge issue, which we'll get into that later on. Now, into a smaller scale for examples of overpopulation and how it impacts various areas. We'll use North Carolina, for example. Just in 2000 and 2010 alone, North Carolina gained almost 1.5 million people within one decade. And this topped our population off at 9.5 million. Now, and of course, this was in 2010. Over this time period, North Carolina and the whole nation was the sixth fastest growing state. And the growth rate was almost reached 20%. And now here's another North Carolina population thing. Just in 1789, we had just a little less than 500,000 people in North Carolina. And within these close 200 years, we've approximately topped off at 8.5 million people in 2004. So that's approximately an 8 million people growth within 2 years. Now, that may not seem a lot, but that can cause many factors for, it can lead to health problems, food problems, and even housing problems. Now, as you can see here, the trends in human population from 1970, we were just a little over 40,000 people. And then the projected growth all the way to 2020 is 80,000 people alone in urban places, forests, things of that nature, etc. Now, from 1992 to 2010, we're looking at these places, all these places that are highlighted in dark purple. These are places where people are going to and are becoming immensely populated, and it can be many factors, economic prosperity, housing, other places are overpopulated, so people need to move there, food, there's many factors into that. Now, all these places in dark blue are places basically where we are losing our forest. Now, at first glance, you may think, well, we're losing forest. Well, that's depressing, but we'll get over it. In fact, that is not the case. We lose forest at an exponential rate, that we're destroying ecosystems and to put people there, and that affects our agriculture, and we even affect other animals going extinct. Now, because of all of this, trees cuttings and things of that nature, one major thing that we have to make up for that is food. Now, to supply all these people, we need food. So we get that from farming. And one major problem with farming is it really hurts the environment with the way we do today. Before, to cope with the messes of farming and how it impacted the soil, we had to do crop rotation. But with the population that it is today, because we are becoming overpopulated and our ecosystems cannot sustain the amount of people that are there, we have to use chemical pesticides in order to farm in today's society. Now, the problem with pesticides is they get into our water, and they can travel by air, soil as well. And this can damage soil and the surrounding environment from what it is actually intended to do. So just because we're farming to make up for these people that we put in these environments and destroyed for, we're also destroying more environments from our new farming ways. The soil as well. We kill the soil with these chemicals, and then we contaminate it, and that gets in our food. Now, with the food, that creates major health problems, and you can become very ill from being exposed to many of this. Now, although it may not seem much just from the soil itself, but as you can see here with the health effects, it follows us all the way to our very homes, just because of what we put in the farmlands out there from overpopulated areas that we have to make up for. It can follow us all the way to our homes, and then we can become seriously ill because of that. Now, as you can see here, because we are so overpopulated, and one cause of this could be an economical factor and industrial factor, we in America are the 7th in the world for the contribution to global warming. We produce very high CO2 emissions, and we use lots of coal. Now, this becomes a problem because we now are affecting the temperature. Overpopulation is a very big issue and very big cause for the temperatures, and the temperatures may not seem much at first glance, but this highly contributes to global warming, and global warming can destroy environments. Habitats that aren't meant to be warmer and are supposed to maintain a colder temperature are now warming up. That affects the animals there. Animals need to migrate now to colder places, and then now we take those habitats away from them by moving to them, resulting in the animals being decreased gradually over time, and eventually they can go extinct, all because of our overpopulation. Now, that's it for overpopulation. Thanks for watching.